Did you know? There's evidence suggesting that Resident Evil originally featured messages on the walls, similar to the ones seen in Portal and Left 4 Dead. One clear example is from an early demo build of the game, where a message is scrawled in blood on the wall in one of the corridors. It roughly translates as, "It hurts to breathe. Someone please stop this pain." This was over a decade prior to the popularization and critically acclaimed use of in-game text for storytelling in Valve games. Another interesting part of Resident Evil's development is that it was initially conceived as a first-person shooter, but a different playstyle was adopted instead, inspired by Alone in the Dark. According to Resident Evil's director Shinji Mikami, it wasn't technically good enough. If you can make it to the Raccoon City Police Department in Resident Evil 2 without picking up any items in normal mode, a special zombie wearing a yellow vest and camouflage pants will be shuffling through the back alley behind the department. This zombie is Brad Vickers, the helicopter pilot from the original Resident Evil. Killing the zombified Brad will give the player a special key to access alternate costumes for Leon, or an alternate costume and a handgun for Claire. This secret was especially eerie, as the player would have no knowledge of Brad's demise. The last time we saw him was in Resident Evil 1, where he was alive and well. Development of Resident Evil 2 began 1 month after completion of the original Resident Evil, and was scheduled for a March 1997 release. As the game approached completion, Capcom felt unsatisfied with the product. Rather than releasing a game that they were unhappy with, they made the tough decision to entirely rework the game. This scrapped version of the project was later dubbed Resident Evil 1.5. Although it followed the same basic outline as Resident Evil 2, 1.5 had multiple drastic differences. One difference that's instantly noticeable is that although Leon is still in the game, Claire Redfield is nowhere to be seen. Instead, we have Elza Walker, a motorcycle enthusiast attending university. Elza was changed into Claire Redfield, Chris Redfield's sister, to make a stronger connection with the first game, and although Claire and Leon's paths crossed, Leon and Elza's paths did not. The game's graphics were also thoroughly revised. Environments were remodeled to look more artistic and interesting. The 3D models received a boost in polygons, but at the expense of having fewer zombies on screen. There were also some drawbacks. 1.5's character models physically changed to show damage from zombies, as well as for costumes. You could also equip gear, such as clothing that raised defense or let you carry more items. The story was originally very conclusive, concerning some developers. This seemed to be one of the main reasons for the drastic change in direction. The ending was altered to be more open-ended, which allowed for future installments in the franchise. The delay was the reason Resident Evil Director's Cut shipped with a playable preview disc of Resident Evil 2. It was Capcom's way of apologizing to the players for the late release. Devil May Cry actually started out as Resident Evil 4. The project began sometime between 1998 and the year 2000 as a PlayStation 2 title, and had Resident Evil 2 director Hideki Kamiya leading the project. Kamiya's focus for Resident Evil 4 seemed to be on fast, stylish combat and the coolness of the protagonist. This new direction is what led to the departure of fixed camera angles in-game, as the fixed perspective limited what could be done in a more action-oriented game. Sometime during development, Shinji Mikami felt that the game had strayed too far from the series' survival horror roots. He took action and managed to convince Kamiya and the rest of his team that the game would be better off as an original title. This new game was unveiled as Devil May Cry in November 2000. After Resident Evil 2 was completed, Capcom began development of new titles for the Resident Evil franchise, Resident Evil 3, and a spin-off title. What's interesting about this plan is that Resident Evil 3 was drafted as a franchise evolution for new next-gen systems like the Dreamcast, and the spin-off was set to tell the events leading up to Resident Evil 2. This spin-off was planned for release on the PlayStation as Resident Evil Nemesis. Due to a deal that Capcom had made with Sony, Capcom had to release a numbered, main series Resident Evil game for the PlayStation 1. Capcom made the decision to rebrand Nemesis as Resident Evil 3. The true successor in the franchise, Code Veronica, was then branded as a spin-off. In Resident Evil 5's downloadable mission Lost in Nightmares, if you try leaving the mansion through the front door 3 times, you'll be able to play through the entire mission using the fixed camera perspective of the original 3 games, instead of the default third-person view. And one last piece that might give you some insight into the minds of Resident Evil 4's developers. If Leon looks up when underneath Ashley during escort sections of the game, it will trigger a dialogue that's only used for this event.
Oh, you pervert!
That's all for today, but don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Make sure you also check out DidYouKnowGaming.com, where we post gaming trivia every day. If you like this video, check out our other videos. Or if you're still unsure on Resident Evil 6, check out the in-depth review by Cat Icarus. Or if you want something a little more short and sweet, check out the 1-minute review by ProJared. Ah, that ProJared guy is one handsome fella.